SACOG board. Just want to welcome everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. I will start off by doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and feel free to join in. Ooh, that's nice. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
and to the republic
which stands, one nation under God,
indivisible.
liberty and justice for all.
Great, thanks so much for that. Lynette, would you please begin the call to roll?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Today, as Chair Farrick just said, is May 21st. This is the SACOG board meeting, and this meeting is being live audio streamed and recorded for posting on our SACOG website and for public participation. Before I take roll, I just wanted to remind you that members of our board who are participating via telephone, please press *9 if you'd like to make a comment. And then also board members, when you are not speaking, we would appreciate it if you could please mute your device so that we can just avoid feedback. All right, Director Allard, he will be joining us later. Cabalden.
Here.
Douglas.
Present.
Flores. I don't see him. Absent. Frost.
Here.
Gallardo.
Here.
Gore.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Thank you. Jankovitz.
Here.
Jennings.
Here.
Joyner.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Kozlowski.
Here.
Leahy.
Here.
Lozano.
Here.
New.
Here.
Onderko.
Here.
Peters. I see Director Peters is on the telephone, so I'll mark her present. Zaragoza. I don't see him. Absent. Saylor.
Here.
Chenier.
Here.
Slowey.
Here.
Oakley.
Here.
Stallard.
Yes, here.
Thune.
Here.
Tixa.
Here.
Veerkamp.
Here.
West.
Here.
Vice Chair Samayoa. I see
here.
that. Thank you. Yes. Chair Frericks
Here.
and ex officio member Takar for Benny Paul. I'll mark you here. Thank you.
David Sander wasn't called, but I am present.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, Director Sander. We will note for the record that you are present. Thank you.
Great. Well, let's see. So good. Good morning again, everyone. I'm just pulling up the annotated agenda here. So we're actually going to adjourn into closed session. Would first ask the staff and members of the public be patient as we hold the closed session. So for the board members, we are participating on a secure system, so just stay on the line. Technical staff is going to announce when we're ready to begin closed session. So just give us a moment here.
Thank you so much, Chair Farrick. I'm going to go ahead and transfer everyone that won't be present into closed session. So if anyone can just avoid talking until I give you the go ahead that we are officially in closed session. I just wanted to note that Director Allard and Director Cabalden are joining the meeting again. I just wanted them to know that closed session is over. Family members that are non-APA.
the beach in Roseville is looking very enticing, John. I'll just say it's.
Okay, I'm confirming that the video is live streaming, so we are currently live for the public to be able to hear us.
Excellent. Great. Well, thanks everyone. So just wanted to reconvene into open session here. Welcome back. So there are no reportable actions from the closed session. So now we're going to move on to public communications. This is a time for anyone who wishes to address the board on an item that does not appear elsewhere on this agenda. So Lynette, did we receive any public comments via email, or is there a member of the public who's participating by telephone that wishes to comment?
Yes, Chair Ferricks, we do have a citizen from Sacramento who would like to make a public comment.
Okay.
And our Deputy Executive Director, Eric Johnson, is getting him on the phone. If we could hold one moment.
Thank you.
Eric Bauger is being dialed in right now. Okay,
Great. Okay.
he is now on the line.
Good morning. Please feel free to give your public comment.
Hi, I'd like to comment on item number 16.
Okay.
On the, that's the.
Now on the line. Good morning. Please feel free to give your public comment.
Hi, I'd like to comment on item number 16.
Okay.
Here, let me mute my phone for a minute here. Or mute my
Yes, please.
computer.
Your computer, please.
Okay, item 16 is about the ATP funding. First of all, I'd like to thank Victoria Cacciatore for the kind and gracious way that she's always dealt with everyone from the public that she's ever encountered. And we really appreciate that. Second, I'm concerned about how ATP funding can be used to divert SACOG money from using the rubric that you guys currently have, can be used to divert SACOG money from bike trails to destroying heritage railroad lines and wrecking them, especially the Del Rio Trail. And thirdly, and then I'll end my comment, I'd like you guys to be aware of the ZEBRA initiative, the Zero Emission Bike and Rail Alternative. Trains are coming online now. In 2021, they're going to have new locomotives that are battery powered. So if you destroy a heritage railroad line, you destroy the possibility of having people be able to use that line for transportation, like, for example, to get into Old Sacramento. And with that, I yield the remainder of my time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your public comment. Lynette, is there any other public comments at this point?
No, there isn't.
Excellent. Okay, thanks so much. Appreciate that. So let's see. So we're now going to adjourn the SACOG Board of Directors and convene as the CVR SAFE Board of Directors. Lynette, would you please note for the record any changes of the previous roll call?
Thank you, Chair Ferricks. I don't know any other changes except for the addition of Director Allard as previously mentioned.
Great, thank you. So the SAFE agenda contains the following consent items: the approval of minutes from February 20th, 2020, SAFE board meeting, and also at number 2, the approve and release of the draft 2020-2021 budget. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on these items? Not hearing any. Is there a motion to approve? Please raise your hand or say some. Okay, I see Bonnie first. There we go. Moved by Bonnie, seconded by Rick Jennings. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing and seeing none, we will have the clerk call the roll.
Thank you. Director Allard?
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Cabaldon?
Aye.
Douglas?
Aye.
Director Flores is still absent. Frost,
Aye.
Dialdo,
Aye.
Gore,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Jankovitz,
Yes.
Jennings,
Aye.
Joyner,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Kozlowski,
Yes.
Leahy,
Yes.
Lozano,
Yes.
New,
Yes.
Onderko,
Aye.
Peters, Director Peters, could you indicate your vote? You can press *9. Okay, moving on, Director Sander,
Aye.
Saragosa,
Aye.
Saylor,
Aye.
Chenier,
Aye.
Lowy,
Aye.
Spokely,
Yes.
Stallard,
Yes.
Thune,
Aye.
Tixa,
Yes.
Veerkamp,
Yes.
West, Director West, can you press *9 if you're participating via telephone to indicate your vote? Okay. Moving
Madam
on, Vice
Clerk.
Chair Samayoa,
No.
Vice Chair Samayoa,
Yes, aye.
thank you. Chair
Okay.
Frerichs,
Aye.
No,
Sorry.
I didn't call you. I think you maybe got your numbers mixed up.
I'm
and
gonna,
Chair Frerichs,
yeah, I'm an aye, but there we go. We got that on mute. Great, thank you.
thank you.
Madam Clerk, Director Peters indicated her vote by raising her hand.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that. Okay, excellent. So the vote is, I believe, unanimous. So we'll move along now. We're going to adjourn the SAFE Board of Directors meeting and reconvene as the SACOG Board of Directors. So now switching gears to the consent calendar, the consent items before us today are intended to be approved, of course, in one motion, but anyone can remove an item if they feel they need to for separate discussion. Do we have anybody that wishes to remove a specific item from the consent calendar? Oh, now I'm not seeing anybody raising their hands yet on that. Okay.
I'll go ahead and move the consent calendar.
Thank you, Jay. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Multiple seconds. I think that was Alex Tixa. So, and then is the first person that I saw and heard. So Lynette, is there anyone from the public who wishes to remove an item from public comment?
I don't have any comment, Chair Frerichs.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or discussion on the consent calendar? Seeing and or hearing none. Lynette, would you please call a roll?
Thank you. Director Allard,
Yes.
Cabalden,
Aye.
Douglas,
Aye.
Flores is absent. Frost,
Aye.
Gallardo,
Yes.
Gore,
Aye.
Harris,
Yeah.
Jankovitz,
Yes.
Jennings,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Kozlowski,
Yes.
Leahy,
Yes.
Lozano,
Yes.
New,
Yes.
Onderko,
Yes.
Peters, and it looks like she is raising her hand. Thank you. Sander,
Aye.
Zaragoza,
Aye.
Saylor,
Aye.
Chenier,
Aye.
Slowey,
Aye.
Spokely,
Yes.
Dallard,
Yes.
Thune,
Yes.
Tixa,
Yes.
Veerkamp,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Vice Chair Samayoa,
That's a yes.
Chair Frerichs,
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Great, thanks so much, everybody. So now moving on to our action items. Item number 7 is approve the final budget and overall work program for fiscal year 2020-2021. Loretta is going to present this item.
Thank you. Good morning. Give me 1 second to share the screen here. Sorry. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay, good morning.
Yes.
Okay, good morning. This item is seeking board of actions on the fiscal year 2021 budget and OWP. SACOG, as a federally designated metropolitan planning organization, is required to develop a budget and OWP annually. The OWP describes the continuing, comprehensive, and coordinated metropolitan planning process for the 6 county Sacramento regions. A draft budget and OWP for the has been submitted to Caltrans and federal agencies review and comment in March, and the board approved the release of the draft for public comment at the April board meeting. Here, I just want to give a quick overview of the changes from the draft budget to the final budget. The final OWP reflect comments from Caltrans and federal agencies. There were no fiscal impact to the budgets. There were just some minor updates to the OWP, which includes descriptions to project activities and end deliverables. Included in the final budget is a net increase of revenue of approximately 1.6 million. This includes the increase in revenue for the Connect card and the SAFE budgets of approximately $2 million, and which is offset by the TDA revenue reduction of 491,000. Included in the final budget, there's a request to use the reserve fund balance of 491,000 to backfill the shortfall due to the TDA revenue reductions. And I will go over in detail a little bit more about the TDA revenue reduction later. As just a quick recap, SACOG operates 2 budgets. The first budget is the operation budget. This includes the overall work program projects and activities, and it included the Capital Valley Regional SAFE budgets. It included the use of managed funds, and then the capital asset budget and other local activities. And the second budget is the board and advocacy budget, which includes activities for the board, partnerships, and advocacy work. Just want to give a quick overview of the revenue sum for the operation budgets. For the fiscal year 2021, the total revenue is 28.3 million, which is a 814,000 decrease compared to fiscal year 1920 of 29.1 million. On this chart here, it showed the percentage of revenue by the different categories of funding source. For the federal, it represents about 33% of SACOG revenue. This includes formula, transportation, and planning funds, and then also include discretionary grants. At this point, staff does not anticipate any immediate impact to SACOG budgets. The state represents about 32% of the revenue. This includes the SB1 funds, other discretionary grants, and competitive grants. And it also includes a one-time housing funding. We anticipate there will be a partial impact to these revenue source because since SB1 funds are based on gas tax receipts, local revenue represents about 17%. This includes the TDA funds, which we believe will have a significant impact to SACOG budget. since the TDA fund is based on sales tax receipt. Service to others and other revenue represent the 18% of the SACOG budgets. This mainly is the SAFE budget, and at this point, we do not anticipate any impact to SACOG budgets. I want to also kind of give an overview of the expenditures for the SACOG budgets. The total expenditures for the fiscal year 2021 is 27.3 million, which resulted in a 356,000 increase comparing to 26.9 million in fiscal year 1920. This is due to the deferred cost carryover from the prior year. As you can see from the chart here, staff costs make up about 38% of the total expenditures. 17% is in the consulting cost category, and this includes consulting costs for the work related to the OWP and contracted services for SAFE. Pass-through cost is approximately 35% of the total expenditure cost, and this includes the one-time funding for the housing program. Overheads and other costs make up the remaining 10% of the budgets. Here's an overview of the board and advocacy budgets. Total budget is approximately 828,000, which represent a 71,000 increase compared to 757,000 in fiscal year 1920. Staff cost is approximately 44% of the total expenditures. Board activity is approximately 11%. Partnership is about 18%, and then advocacy work is about 27%. As you know, at this point, we do not know the full impact to SACOG budget due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As you know, the current situation is fluid and change constantly. There are still a lot of uncertainties at this point, like the impact to the local business, the length of disruptions, the severity, and the recovery's shape. In addition to that, there's also delay in tax receipt and lagging on information due to the two sales tax order from the governor. This includes the 90-day sales tax deferral, which is in effect until July 31st, and then also the defer up to 50,000 of the tax liability for small businesses up to 12 months. With these uncertainty and the lagging of information, it's just hard to know the exact impact to SACOG budget at this point, but we do know that there will be impact to sales tax. So what we did, what we did was when we started the budget for fiscal year 2020-21, we projected we are using a base TDA revenue of 3.8 million, but because the impact of the COVID-19 and with the shelter in place, obviously the tax receipt are anticipated to reduce significantly for the second quarter and possibly third quarter, depending on the length of this order. So included in the final budgets, we included a 13% TDA reduction of revenue, which resulted in the 491,000 of budget shortfall, which I mentioned earlier. Obviously, there has been many changes and many different scenarios out there right now, so we just don't know the exact impact. So what we did was we also kind of looking at different scenarios. So the first scenario we looked at is assuming a 20% TDA fund reduction. This would result in a 753,000 reduction in TDA revenue for SACOG. On the second scenario, we're looking at a 30% TDA fund reduction. This would result in a 1.1 million reduction in TDA funds. And then the third scenario that we looked at is it's a 41% TDA fund reduction. This is equivalent to the 2008 Great Recessions. With this scenario, it would result in a 1.5 million reduction in TDA fund. Obviously, we don't know exactly where the the final impact would be. Last week, the governor released the May budget, and in his budget, it assumed a 27.2% reduction in sales tax revenue. At this point, we are still waiting for information from the 4 counties, which include Sacramento counties, Sutters, Yolo, and Yuba counties, to provide SACOG with the final estimate of the TDA revenue for fiscal year 2021. Once we have that information, we will revise the projection, the revenue projection and expenditures over the next couple months and bring it back to the board in September. The next step, the Policy and Innovations Committee recommends that the board adopts the final budgets and OWP. Once it's adopted, staff will submit the final budget and OWP to Caltrans and federal agencies, with final approval anticipated in June for the works plan activities and expenditures to start July 1st. Because of the uncertainty with the COVID-19 pandemic, staff will continue to monitor the economic conditions and prepare a budget amendment in September, which will include the revised TDA revenues, approved fringe and indirect rates, and the carryover amounts from fiscal year 1920. With that, I concluded the presentations, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you so much, Loretta. Appreciate that. So just before we go to questions, I just wanted to first ask Lynette specifically, is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on this item? No, not, okay, so I see her shaking her head no. Thank you. So just wanted to offer up an opportunity. The Policy and Innovation Committee had a pretty good discussion about this as well, and obviously recommend to the board the approval. Just was going to offer up an opportunity to anyone from the committee, but particularly to the chair. I don't know, Bonnie, if you have any comments at all, and you don't have to say anything, but just wanted to just offer that up first before we sort of move along.
Thank you, Lucas. I think the one thing that just was important to us is making sure that we have the reserves to cover the shortfall at this point. And of course, we'll reevaluate as we move along, but we do have those reserves and have enough in reserves that it will allow us to continue to move forward with the work that we have.
Appreciate that. And feel free, any other members of the committee want to add anything else in as well too. And just speak up if you want. I just don't have everyone here on the screen with me. So I've got the two toggling between the two screens. Let's see. So great. Well, so if there are any additional questions at all for Loretta? Not seeing any. So great. So do we have a motion to approve? About Pierre, I see Pierre moving.
I'll second.
Multiple seconds. I see Darren, I heard Darren's voice. Great. So any further questions, comments, or discussion on this particular item? I would just say, thanks so much to Loretta for the work on this, and the committee obviously was fully supportive. Appreciate it. And we're obviously also committed to continuing to regularly check in on it as it develops over the course of the next several months. So if there are no additional questions or comments or discussion, we'll have Lynette go to a roll call vote.
Thank you. Director Allard,
Yes.
Cabaldon,
Aye.
Douglas,
Aye.
Flores, absent, Frost,
Aye.
Gallardo,
Yes.
Gore,
Aye.
Yes.
Harris, Jankovich,
Yes.
Jennings,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Kozlowski,
Yes.
Leahy,
Yes.
Lozano,
Yes.
New,
Yes, for
Yes.
Underco.
Yes.
thank you. Thank you, Director Anderko. We'll note you as yes. Peters, Sander,
Aye.
Zaragoza,
Aye.
Sailor,
Aye.
Chenier,
Aye.
Slowey,
Aye.
Spokley,
Yes.
Dallard,
Yes.
Thune,
Aye.
Tixa,
Yes.
Veerkamp,
Aye.
West,
Yes.
Vice Chair Samayoa,
Aye.
Chair Frericks.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Great, thank you so much. So now we'll move along to item 8, which is approving the board resolution thanking and honoring Luis Elizondo upon his retirement. So is there anybody who from the public who wishes to comment on this item? And Lynette, do you have anyone out there?
I don't have any public comment.
Okay, then do we have a motion to approve? We're gonna do the presentation of the resolution in a moment and allow for comments, but we're just gonna do the vote first. So a motion to approve?
Sailor moves. approval.
Taylor moves.
Dallard seconds.
Solid second. Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Not seeing or hearing any. Lynette, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Director Allard,
Yes.
Cabalden,
Aye.
Douglas,
Aye.
Flores absent, Frost,
Aye.
Gallardo,
Aye.
Gore,
Aye.
Harris,
Yes.
Jankovitz,
Yes.
Jennings,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Kennedy, Kozlowski,
Yes.
Leahy,
Yes.
Lozano,
Yes.
New,
Yes.
Onderko,
Yes.
Peters. I believe she's raising her hand there. Sander,
Aye.
Zaragoza,
Aye.
Sailor.
He made the motion. He's an aye.
Yes,
Aye.
thank you.
Aye.
Chenier,
Aye.
Slowey,
Aye.
Spokley,
Yes.
Stallard,
Aye.
Soon,
Aye.
Tixa,
Yes.
Veerkamp,
Aye.
West,
Yes.
Vice Chair Samayoa,
Aye.
and Chair Frericks.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Great. Thank you very much. So Bruce Griesenbeck, who's I saw him on here a little bit ago, is going to be the presenter on this item.
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great. So Luis Elizondo has been an employee here at SACOG since 1990. To put that into perspective, Luis has worked for 6 executive directors. And many of you remember our last office at 30th and S Street. Louis is actually the last employee who worked at SACOG's original office in Old Sac, and I challenge anybody to remember where that office actually was. So with him retires a lot of history and institutional knowledge, for sure. Louis told me that the most memorable question he was asked when he was interviewed for this job in 1990 was, "Can you drive a stick shift?" And that question gave Louis a great heads up that he would spend a lot of time on the road on behalf of SACOG. Whether he was collecting GPS data points for updating our regional street centerline file or doing windshield surveys to verify the locations of employers for our regional employment inventory, or providing boots on the ground for maintaining and operating the region's call boxes, Louis's work has taken him to nooks and crannies of virtually every one of your jurisdictions, and he dearly loves this region and all its towns and cities. When the region's rideshare program started in the 1990s, Louis happily transitioned to staffing the phones and helping with the job of getting people into carpools and transit. The world's changed a lot since 1990 for sure. And a lot of the field work that Louis started out doing for SACOG transitioned to work on the internet, work with aerial imagery and GIS. As these transitions happened, Louis freshened up his computer skills, trained on GIS, Excel, whatever was needed for Louis for him to learn to do his job. Louis learned. And Louis mentions and remembers Joe Kincannon as a supervisor who especially helped him and supported him in all these transitions. For any of you who participated in the regional blueprint workshops, you undoubtedly saw Louis. While those workshops weren't quite Cirque du Soleil in terms of their complexity, they were pretty close. There was a huge logistical tale for those workshops: furniture, computers, cabling, screens, laptops, voting machines, paper materials, food, and on and on and on. Louis was one of the stalwarts managing and executing the logistics for those events. Louis set up, greeted attendees, signed in people, ran interference during the events, then took down all the equipment and packed it all up. And it speaks volumes about Louis that he remembers that of the 37 public workshops for the regional blueprint, he missed 4, and you can tell it kind of bugs him that he missed those 4. Louis very much enjoys the camaraderie and teamwork of that type of event and that type of project. And he loved the chance to get out to the far corners of this region. And I guarantee you, Louis also enjoyed having a cold beverage after some of those events with his friends and colleagues. And I mentioned the blueprint, but Louis has really been the common denominator to virtually every major public workshop we've held in recent memory. As a coworker, Louis is unfailingly positive, adaptable, considerate, and always willing to help out in any way that he could. When I ask coworkers for words that come to mind when they think of Louis, there's a lot of commonality: approachable, adaptable, uncomplicated, comfortable in his skin, loyal. And I think all of us would love to have those words as kind of enduring memories of us. He contributed to making our workplace special and friendly in so many different ways. Louis is going to be missed by all of us here at SACOG when he finally retires on the 30th of June. Though his wife Lisa will enjoy seeing him more now. Louis also has 2 kids and 4 grandkids, and all of whom will be seeing a lot more of him in retirement, as it should be. But for me and for everybody here at SACOG, we will miss Louis immensely, and we join all of you in recognizing what Louis has given to this agency over the last 30 years and thank him.
Thanks, Bruce. Thank you so much, Bruce. That was excellent. Well, congratulations, Louis. And I see Louis on the phone here, so I want to just offer an opportunity for Louis to say a few words too, certainly if he's interested.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Bruce, for those kind words. I want to thank the SACOG board. It's been 29 and a half years in the making, and I've seen a lot of changes in the region. I want to thank my coworkers who I've worked with these past years. I'm going to miss you guys, being around you all. I've learned a lot from you guys. You guys got great minds. I think SACOG's in a good place with these guys. I take away a lot of great memories and friendships, and I hope to continue that into retirement. And I hope we can get together soon and celebrate. And once more, thank you, and everybody stay safe. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your service. 30 years is quite an accomplishment, especially one organization. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Director, I see Darren's got claps. Okay, lots of claps happening. That's good. We're using the
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Great. We will now switch to item 9, which is approval of a board resolution thanking and honoring Kirk Trost upon his retirement, although he seems to still be working. So I'm not sure what that's all about. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on this item? On that, any public comment? No?
I don't have any public comment.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Stallard moved approval.
We have Stallard moving approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Soon. Any questions, comments, or discussion? We will go to a roll call vote.
Thank you. Director Allard,
Yes.
Cabaldon,
Aye.
Douglas,
Aye.
Flores absent, Frost,
Aye.
Gallardo,
Aye.
Gore,
Aye.
Harris,
Yes.
Jankovitz,
Yes.
Jennings,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Kozlowski,
Yes.
Leahy,
Yes.
Lozano,
Yes.
New,
Yes.
Onderrico,
Yes.
Peters. She's still on the line. Sander,
Aye.
Saragosa,
Aye.
Sailor,
Aye.
Kinnear,
Aye.
Flowey,
Yes.
Stokely,
Yes.
Stallard,
Yes.
Soon,
Yes.
Tixa,
Yes.
Veerkamp,
Aye.
West,
Yes.
Vice Chair Samayoa.
Aye.
Chair, thank you. Chair Frericks.
Enthusiastic, yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Great, excellent. Thanks so much. So appreciate that. James is actually going to start us off in presenting the resolution.
Well, thank you, Chair Frericks. It's truly an honor to be able to present this the resolution and say a few words about Kirk. I know we've had somewhat of a chance to do that in past months, and I really wish, like many other things during this pandemic, we could do this in person and truly honor Kirk face to face. But we will make the best of it. There is no shortage of things you could say about Kirk's tenure here at SACOG, certainly that predated mine, that many of you know about, and I want to give the board members a chance to say a few things. Kirk has been SACOG's general counsel for 15 years. He served as our COO for 8 years and as our interim executive director before I got on board. Kirk's distinguished legal career has been truly remarkable. His impact and imprint on this region will be felt for decades and generations to come. He was one of the leading figures in the development of Senate Bill 375, not just as a national model of climate and environmental policy, but true to the spirit of things like Green Means Go, where we believe that things with a positive environmental impact should be quicker and easier to do. He negotiated a lot of the streamlined approval processes for housing, affordable housing, and infill development, and still has played a key role in making sure that that regions are truly a part of that, and that it is really a bottom-up policy. Kirk helped launch the Connect card, and as many of you know, that was not easy, but that kind of level of negotiation and bringing Kirk's remarkable ability to bring his kind of legal expertise together with his negotiation tactics and frankly just his remarkable kind of cool, calm, and collected style got that over the finish line. Many of you know that he has worked diligently for over a decade on a streetcar connection between Sacramento and West Sacramento that secured $50 million in federal funding. He really helped negotiate and launch the bike share system, which up until recently, when it was running, was the second most popular and most utilized bike share system in the world. Truly incredible. If you, again, I know many of you remember, again, Kirk's history at SACOG negotiating on behalf of the region to make sure that crude oil transport was done safely. A great example of pulling the region together and having the region really weigh in and influence a major public policy decision. Kirk has an expertise, of many of you know, in JPAs, and among many others, the Sacramento-Placerville Transportation Corridor, JPA, and the Woodland-Davis Clean Water Agency, which is now delivering clean water to Woodland and Davis and UC Davis. But Kirk also has had a remarkable impact in terms of community service. serving as the president of the board of directors for CASA in Yolo County. And last and not least, as I landed here at SACOG 3 years ago, I could imagine no better person at my side to work with me, to guide me, provide me advice, direction, thought. And I know he's served that role for many of you on this board and many others in this region. And his ability to do that is really second to none. It's a remarkable skill, and I'm delighted that he is retired, but he will remain with us and using those talents. And I just cannot thank him enough personally for what he's done both for me and for this agency. Just truly remarkable. So I'm delighted to be able to present this resolution on behalf of the board of directors, and at some point we'll give it to him in person.
Exactly. Hear, hear. Thank you, James, for that. So are there, I'm going to obviously offer Kirk an opportunity to say some few words, certainly, but if there are any board members that would like to add in any additional remarks? Just looking through the...
Yeah, I'd like to say a couple things.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Lucas?
Yeah, Jake, go right ahead. Yep.
Thanks. I'll be brief, and I think that's one of the nicest things about Kirk, that for a lawyer, he's incredibly to the point, and takes a lot of time to get someplace and where he needs to go. As I've served on this board, I think that we've had an incredible staff overall, and the leadership is great from, Mike when we started and James, but Kirk has really filled a lot of holes. As we've had difficult projects, he has been able to step in and help to guide them to generally a good fruition through his actions. I think he's going to be missed a lot, but as with all really great folks, he will get pulled back in as needed, and I think continue to serve this entire region. And I hope that he can look back on his career here and feel really proud of so many of the things that he's done. And James enumerated a lot of those. So I just personally want to say thank you. He was a great help to me when I was chair, and I know he continues to play that role. But just, an important person for this community. So thank you, Kirk.
Hear, hear. Are there any other folks care to make any comments? Not forcing anyone to. Okay. Kirk.
Thanks, Lucas.
Where's yours?
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. I didn't prepare a speech today, but I was thinking last night about how I was going to feel today. And I think the answer is that I feel very grateful, particularly given the time that we're in and all the struggle and anxiety and suffering that's going on in our communities. I feel very grateful. But there are a number of other things I'm grateful about. I'm certainly grateful that it was a unanimous vote. That was a close call, so thanks. I'm really grateful for the opportunities that you've given me over the last 15 years to work with you and your predecessors on the board. There have been some wonderful opportunities, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate the challenge that you face in your communities. You have very, very hard jobs. And I appreciate that you come to SACOG and you have to balance the interest of your communities, the people who elected you, and look at some of the bigger, more complex, diverse challenges that you face at SACOG. That's a very, very hard job for you. And to the extent that I've been able to help you, I'm grateful for that. It's difficult work, the issues are hard, and it has amazed me over the years that you've been able to find common ground and common good, and on nearly every hard issue that you've confronted, you keep coming to unanimous votes, and that's an extraordinary sign of your leadership to look at those challenges and to find a way through them. I've been honored to be a part of that process. I am reminded, when I think about your service, I am reminded by a great mentor that I had in law school, who told me when I was struggling to figure out what I was going to do with my legal career. I think he paraphrased Gandhi when he said to me, if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in public service.
Mhm.
And when I think of you and I think of all of the work that you do, I think that it's something that I've tried to keep in mind to guide my career, and I see it guiding all of your careers. I do want to say an enormous thank you to James. I really am grateful for the partnership that we've had over the last 3 years. I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with James to develop the future leadership of the organization. I think it's in an extraordinary position moving forward. I think this is a moment of inflection for SACOG to think about how it will serve the region in the next, in the years ahead. And I think it's a great leadership team to do that. And I'm happy to have been part of helping develop that. I'm particularly happy for Eric and Casey and their position in the organization, and for some of the other people who I've worked really hard with to develop over the years, Monica, Bruce, and others. I could not begin to put into words my admiration and appreciation for Lynette, who has been a great partner to me over the last decade, and she knows that. And finally, I am most grateful for having worked with the staff. I cannot imagine a group of more hardworking, dedicated, passionate, and fun group of people. It's been extraordinary, and I'm just grateful to all of them for what has been an incredible journey for me. So thank you all.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Kirk, so much for your service to this organization and friendship and leadership to all of us. It's most, so we're also grateful for that. Anyone else with any comments or questions there? Did I hear a motion to rescind that resolution? Okay, excellent.
He did forget to mention the wonderful boards, but we'll forgive him.
I think he might have touched on that. So we will now move along to item 10. This is the impact on SACOG's work plan from COVID crisis. James is going to present this item. And then we have a few other informational items, and then we'll be on our way for the day.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Chair Ferrix. Let me see if I can get my screen sorted out here. Excellent. Thank you, Renee. So this was an item that we brought to the Strategic Planning Committee earlier this month. And for those of you on the Strategic Planning Committee, you might remember that the item right before this was about the economic impacts of COVID-19. And we had Amanda Blackwood speak, and the board had so many questions. We didn't really get a chance to talk about this, but many of you, as I've talked to you individually, your staffs have asked the question that we should all be asking, right? Is the world has changed dramatically. And so Renee, if you can go to the next slide. It's going to have an impact on us. It's going to have an impact on our work. And so I just wanted to at least give the board a little bit of sense of what that looks like going forward, given the fact that we have more uncertainty than we do any kind of crystal ball. But let me just frame it this way for you. First and foremost, in terms of agency impacts, you heard Loretta just kind of provide the overview of the SACOG budget and the fiscal impacts there. I'm very thankful that we have a reserve that we can lean on right now, but clearly none of us know the depth and the extent of the economic crisis and the budget impacts that are facing all of us, which then translates into things like a lot of capacity among your staff. We, as you know, we're a council of governments that represent 28 of you, and we need your staff, and we need them engaged in things like housing work and commercial corridors and civic lab and things like this. And so we're very mindful that that capacity is already stretched, and we want to make sure. In fact, even inside SACOG right now, we've developed a sort of a tracking system of when we're putting asks out to each of your jurisdictions and your staff, so that we're really trying to we're trying to spread them out, and we're not trying to overwhelm people, because we know capacity is more limited now. The obvious delays and disruptions of our projects there are just things that we were going to do together in person that either we have to completely rethink or delay or cancel. We've been looking forward to the Cap to Cap tour and Cap to Cap itself. I think we've mentioned this to you, but the next kind of version of the SACOG Civic Lab Mobility Accelerator, building on the first year, is now delayed. We hope we will be able to launch this in the fall, but delayed in part because the teams that were very excited to engage in this, many of whom include transit staff, many of whom include some of your local transportation staff, just they don't have the time and the bandwidth right now. So things like that are delayed. And then as Chair Ferrix knows, because he is leading the mega region working group with the Bay Area and San Joaquin County, we had planned a big in-person summit in August that we're now having to rethink. So the work has not stopped, and I'm delighted to say we as a staff, as an agency, we moved to remote work very quickly and with little immediate disruption, but being very mindful of a lot of medium-term and long-term disruption. So next slide, if you could, Renee. So what are the threats? And again, these are just a initial list of things we know. I'm very thankful that the state did take some of the steps I think we supported and it needed to take to protect some of the SB1 revenues and the transportation revenues. We're not all entirely funded by the gas tax, nor our projects. Sales taxes are down, as everybody knows, and down pretty significantly. That's really gonna impact a lot of our medium-term transportation project delivery. We've got two very important potential local tax measures, maybe three, on transportation, potentially heading to the ballot in the fall, this November, that are critical, that are planned for in the MTP SES and the transportation plan you adopted back in November. We're counting on those local tax measures to really advance critical transportation and infrastructure projects, and they may either stall or lose support. Our public transit ridership, again, as you all know, has been catastrophic in terms of its decline. We're looking at continued decreases of 80–90%, and thus that kind of disruption in the revenue. Retail space, and already somebody has described in some ways what's happening economically as a result of shelter in place as an accelerant to some trends that were underway already. But retail space and the loss of retail, obviously the big malls are being affected, but think about our commercial corridors and also our small businesses. So much of the vibrant communities goal the board has adopted has been dependent upon thriving retail, walkable retail, local retail, commercial corridors that allow for small businesses to thrive. And as you all know, and I think are living every day, that has been turned on its head. Potential disruption in construction. I'm really happy that among the silver linings or the bright spots here, construction seems to have continued. Certainly, there's a lot of work at the state level to make sure that construction projects did not shut down as other regions did. But then finally, as we have talked about already today and in the past couple of months, the incredible impact to the economy, to unemployment, and to longer-term structural economic inequities and disparities is significant. So next slide. That said, there are opportunities, and I think, again, there's been some good discussion in some of our committees. You're going to hear next a presentation from Monica Hernandez about telework. Let me just say, setting up for this, we had always been trying to encourage and incentives and education about how important telework was as part of a toolbox of transportation strategies to relieve some pressure on our highways, to manage congestion. And frankly, it the numbers were never that big. They weren't as big as we thought they could be. And now one of the, as you all know, as we're experiencing right now on this call, we have been forced into a massive experiment around telework. It's not for everybody, but increasingly it is a tool that now more people can understand and can utilize. And so as the economy reopens, as workplaces reopen, we are putting together a program that you're going to hear about next to really make sure that telework isn't something that is sort of required to do, but it's actually a new way of doing business. And if it can be a new way of doing business for the Sacramento region, perhaps this could be one of our competitive advantages moving forward, that staggered work hours, staggered days, employee retention and recruitment. So huge opportunity in actually making sure that we can think about how to embrace telework. The other opportunity is around stimulus and infrastructure investments, much as they were during the Great Recession, and certainly as they were during the Great Depression. But looking at infrastructure investments as an economic stimulus. Tomorrow is the deadline for agencies, public and private sector across the region, to provide us shovel-ready projects. It's been a really helpful, eye-opening exercise to look at what is truly ready off the shelf to go, not just in transportation, but water, sewer, flood control, broadband, construction projects. So that's an opportunity. Whether or not Congress will do something in the months ahead on infrastructure as a stimulus, we want to be ready, and we're aiming to get the region ready to do that. Just as it is for Green Means Go. At the state level, we are now trying to pivot, as many of you know. You signed a letter recently looking at this and trying to get to the Governor Newsom's economic recovery jobs business task force to position Green Means Go as an infrastructure stimulus, an economic stimulus, and a jobs program. And finally, of course, broadband. All of us feeling the pinch and now understanding too, in terms of the gaps that exist, we are going to have broadband, urban, suburban, and rural, for people to be able to participate in the economy, telework, but telehealth, education, remote schooling. You're all feeling this and living it day to day. We've got to do more to figure out how we invest in broadband. And I will just mention the economic prosperity strategy that we've been working on with GSAC and Valley Vision, the Chamber. We have pivoted to make that a recovery and response, economic recovery and response initiative. That will be unveiled next Thursday, May 28th. We're delighted to be able to roll that out and work very closely with our economic partners now, looking at, again, the medium-term strategy for this region to recover. So next slide, Renee. So just to end on some key questions. Which are those new opportunities that deserve some attention? Again, we've gotten some good feedback from many of you through the committees. Are there things we've missed, opportunities that we should be taking advantage of? Are there things that we should be delaying or deprioritizing? And then finally, just want to end on my continued call for you to tell us, big or small, how can we help you and your jurisdiction and your challenges in the months ahead? So with that, I will conclude the presentation.
Great, thanks very much, James. There are still only 7 days in a week, is that correct? Okay, just wanted to check here. It seems like never stop, lots of work to do. So appreciate that. Directors with questions or comments, switching to between screens. So if you have something you'd like to ask or raise with James rather, please do that. Not seeing any. Okay. Well, thanks. I mean, I think that was pretty comprehensive. So I appreciate it.
Lucas.
Go ahead. Yes, Don. I don't see your face, so I just see.
Well, I know that you want to, so I'll turn it on. There it is.
There you go.
So I just want to say a couple things. We're very interested in having this opportunity to strengthen the broadband infrastructure. The message that we're getting by so many people participating in telecommuting and various technological applications has pointed out the need for more uniform, equitable access to broadband. And so I know that Valley Vision is taking a lead on all of those issues, but this is something that I think that we should be including in our telework initiative on a regional basis to strengthen it. And I think the second point is we can really double down. We're well positioned with Green Means Go and with our increasing profile in the Capitol, but we want to be at every table where anybody is talking about infrastructure investment or climate action funding, we're well positioned to take advantage of that and to be forceful advocates for investment in our region and in infrastructure throughout the state and country. So those are my comments.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any other questions or comments or for discussion? Darren?
Thank you, Chair Farks. Yeah, I know we just had your review, James, but I just want to commend you for taking this leadership role through SACOG, recruiting other things outside of transportation to show this regional leadership in trying to get this economy going. All the things that Director Saylor mentioned, and just want to acknowledge those efforts. So thank you very much.
Great, thank
Chair.
you. Yes, Tom.
Chair Stallard here. I just want to mention that the broadband issue is even greater now in this current pandemic situation. All of the educational establishments are trying to reach their student populations through the internet. So it's only going to increase the digital divide when kids have no access or inadequate access to the internet, because that's really the only, distance learning is the only thing they have as an option at the moment. And that will probably continue to be present even after we return to a more normal situation. So I think we have new allies to work with on this.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Looking through scrolling through the photos here and such. Let's see. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, James. Appreciate that. So we'll move on now to the additional informational item. It's the regional telework long-term support item that Monica is going to present to us. And then we will just have it's about 15 minutes, and then we're going to be have just a very few minutes at the end of the meeting for just quick wrap-ups and board report and such. Monica, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given the time constraints, I'm going to quickly try to adapt my presentation so we can jump into a discussion which was starting to be teed up following James's presentation. One of the things that I wanted to note is that prior to the COVID-19 and the shelter in place ordinances, there were only about 7% of the US workforce that were able to telework or regularly teleworking. And if you looked at the attachments that were provided, most of those who had access to telework prior to COVID-19 were higher wage earners. That's just a little bit of context as we think about the transition back, and also to highlight our awareness of that as workers are going back to their physical locations. Also of note is that when we return, we know that the physical workspaces will be different. We're looking at less employees being on site, so there is still a high demand for telework from the workplace, but then also the added constraints of potential childcare needs, both over the summer and into the fall. We know that schools will look differently, how they are run and operated. School districts are exploring if there will be kind of half-day alternate days. So there's still certainly a demand for that flexibility. And while we're looking ahead to that, what we're thinking about is, given the programs that we have historically offered and recognizing that telework was not one of the most applied or used in terms of a commute alternative or a flexible work schedule, what are the barriers that employers are facing to address that? So let me go ahead and pull up my presentation just one moment. So as we go into telework, a quick look at what has been happening to VMT in our region. You'll see here that there was an initial drop in the early stages and then a full complete bottoming out where we are right now. And as we think about maintaining some levels of telework, what we want to do is retain that from the pre-COVID levels. We're looking at a huge anomaly. That is not the goal. We recognize that there are significant issues with this plummet in VMT associated with education, access to education, jobs, and work. So I just really want to emphasize that that's not what we are focused on. We are just thinking about, as we transition back, what are the benefits that we can retain from telework? And again, telework is part of a suite of work alternatives, commute alternatives. But where we are right now, this is our foot in the door to really demonstrate that suite. So the process that we're going to go to is a really Civic Lab informed human-centered design thinking. Right now, we're going to start with our listen and learn phase. We're very fortunate to have already very active and early support from the Greater Sacramento Economic Council, the Metro Chamber, PBIDS, and other business associations. So right now, our staff are working to connect and hear. We have lots of ideas and information for the work that we have done historically, but what we want to do is validate that and hear from the stakeholders. Through June, we're going to design and build out the programs. And then July through December, we want to deploy and test those ideas, iterate and revise in real time so that we can get feedback. And then for 2021, we're looking at the scale up opportunities. So this process really is the great human-centered design applications that we've used through Civic Lab. And we're essentially using Civic Lab model on ourselves at the staff level. So we're very excited. This work actually was already within our Innovative Mobility Work Plan program that was approved over a year ago. It was scheduled for 2021. So as noted by so many, COVID, the great accelerant, we want to just look for a positive opportunity during this very, very hard time. So I want to just jump right into the program discussions, questions. I'm happy to elaborate on some of these staff ideas, but again, I'm a little bit hesitant to say too much because we do really need to validate with stakeholders that we are addressing the challenges that they are facing in terms of retaining some levels of telework. So in attachment A, I listed a few questions for the board to engage with. I recognize that we are short on time. I do want to acknowledge that I heard the issues around broadband as well, and those are certainly things that we are following. We're reaching out to telecommunications providers, but we're also exploring if there is a potential where there are incentives or other ways that we can work to identify some of those access needs from an employer base. So I'm going to stop right there, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to entertain questions.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Monica. So directors with questions or comments at all?
And I'm happy to provide more context on some of the ideas that we want to get tested to give the board a little bit more sense of what staff is thinking. Again, recognizing that we need to validate that. So Mr. Chair, if you would like that.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody out there? I mean, I appreciate that overview. Anyone out there with questions or comments that want a little more discussion or detail?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, we weren't able to, we experienced the same issue in the Transportation Committee where we completely ran out of time to take up what is a really important issue. So thanks, Monica, and for the presentation today. And I'm excited about the work. It's a huge topic, and it's a big one to take on through this kind of a design. SACOG has both challenges and opportunities for this kind of user-centered design approach, which I think is really important here. Because not only do we not understand all the opportunities and the barriers and the decision points, but neither do people who make the decisions, right? That's a very important part of this situation, is that even my own personal views about my own personal teleworking are changing every day. And as I think about it, I like the option to be flexible, but I miss going to have lunch with my coworkers. There's just so many other dimensions to this than like having a really great TDM program, and just one more, if somebody gave me $10 a day to telework, I don't know. I mean, that's not the thing that's driving me right now. And I just think, and as I talk as an employer, same thing. I mean, city manager and I were talking yesterday, and we both said there's been a lot of benefits from this. Both of us were pretty much opposed to authorizing too much teleworking before any of this, because everybody that signed up for it seemed to be the people who were the least appropriate to do it. And that's a real thing. So if we had gotten a tax credit, or if somebody had given us free parking or whatever, I don't think we would have done it. frankly. So I think that, you know, this is a really ripe policy area for user-centered design, but it has to be user-centered, right? The actual decision makers, that is workers, employers, HR directors, CEOs, and getting at their real issues, not their pretend, like, let me tell you that what I'm really concerned about is emissions and what, no, really, what's gonna mean signing Bonnie's request to work 4 days a week from home? What is it gonna, you know, why aren't you doing that? Right, so we've got to understand those kinds of issues more clearly. That argues very much against a stakeholder-driven approach. So I just want to flag that. That's a stakeholder-driven approaches are very good for planning. They're not so good for user-centered design because they bring these they inject these existing frameworks about thinking about problems and opportunities. So, you know, you invite TMAs and their solution is we need to, you know, do TMA stuff in order to promote teleworking. You invite cities and we'll put something in the utility bill, right? I mean, we all bring our solutions to the problems when we begin at the stakeholder level. So they're important, but they shouldn't be an illusion about what some of the real issues are. And then I think, as you've hinted, Monica, and there's really important is gradations of this. You know, we're starting to see some cities and other places talk about what is a 4-day at office week look like with 1 day teleworking. So it doesn't have to be, you know, which jobs can permanently be and totally be teleworked and which ones can't, but also how do you know, could we work 10 to 2 in the office, for example, and have more time, you know, telework the rest of the day. There are a lot of other flavors of this. And so part of the design process is really busting even people's ideas about what the choices have to be from the outset. So I'm excited about it. I'm glad that you're leading this work, Monica, and the potential benefits here, both in terms of environment and congestion, but also in terms of, as we've seen, mental health, flexibility, productivity are all really possible, but need an organization like SACOG to help us. We can't figure this out as a city all by ourselves. We're too in it right now for us to really think clearly about it. And so having SACOG play a role here is both helpful from a policy perspective, but also in terms of I know, at least for me, our jurisdiction as well.
Thank you for those comments. And I just want to clarify, when we talk about stakeholders, we actually are explicitly reaching out to those policymakers and decision makers. Our old way was encouraging employees to try telework, to bike, or try transit. And it doesn't matter what choice an employee wants to make if the workplace doesn't facilitate that. And so I just want to acknowledge and echo that, yes, I hear you and completely agree. And that is the direction. And when those employers start to open up that space, then we have TMAs and PBIDs ready to help facilitate those strategies, you know, implement programs, but we really need those workplaces to enable the behaviors.
Can I just say one other thing, Mr. Which is that the flip side of this is that the state really wants to do this too, and maybe faster and more than they should. Who knows? But and so if the state were to determine we're gonna try to hit a telework goal of 45%, well, that has major implications for all of us around this virtual table in terms of traffic patterns, commute patterns, restaurant business. I mean, all of that. And so in addition to thinking about how do we promote telework, it's also, okay, if telework starts to emerge institutionally, structurally through these other systems, how do we prepare, you know, how does a city prepare for that? You know, if everybody's home in Elk Grove now working, I mean, but with things open, that's a very different world than everybody trying to get on 5 and 99 to get to you know, to another job. And well, you know, we need to be able to plan and prepare for that, and also think about, okay, then what's the financing system, state government, if you're pushing essentially most of your office work or a significant chunk of your office work out to residences and coffee shops and community broadband centers or whatever. What does that look like in terms of support for locals?
Absolutely.
So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Appreciate that. Any other folks with either questions or comments on this item? Really appreciate your comments, Christopher. Anyone else out there? Darren, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, you know, just to add on to that, I think this is really exciting because, you know, it builds capacity into our infrastructure that we were wrestling with before, the economic impacts that Christopher articulated. I mean, if you decentralize state government and imagine, you know, job centers can be right in your own living room. I mean, everybody's living rooms become job centers, creating different, opportunities for restaurants and things. So I think this is really an exciting time to think of a new way to plan our MTP. Our mega region meeting that we had, we talked about aligning our MTPs, and this plays right into that. So I'm actually excited to see this. Personally, I've gotten more exercise during this event than I ever have since I've been in office. So I like it right now. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah. Any other folks with comments or questions at all? Otherwise, we will move now just to these last few minutes of the meeting. So a couple of reports. Vice Chair Samayoa and I sent out a memo earlier this week for the board meeting, just talking about, sort of some changes in the board agendas, no more workshops for at least the next couple months, things like that. Want to just focus on some of the, but also wanted to, again, reiterate that we are wanting to hear from, members of the board as to what, and James said as well during his last update, that just wanting to hear from different folks and jurisdictions, what individual jurisdictions might need and want to see SACOG be working on. So appreciate that. I will just go to actually do a quick round of board members reports, and then also give James a quick moment or two to do his executive director's item if he wants to do any more items. So any board members with reports out there?
To the chair.
Yes.
This is Director Tita from City of Live Oak. I just want to give you guys an update that our highway project on 99, it got delayed by a month, but they are looking. The bid's been awarded, and they are looking to do some preliminary work into next month, and then in July we'll be having like a ground opening ceremony, which will be nice, and hopefully, we'll be able to send out invitations and have a little reception. But it's been a long way. Even for the council before me, they put a lot of work in, and we're doing a lot of work now, for this project. And I also want to thank SACOG for the grant opportunity that we're using with Michelle. She's going to be working with local businesses next week and in this upcoming months that are struggling with COVID and the highway project itself. And again, it's good to communicate with our local businesses, see how they're doing, and some are, being somewhat successful in these times. Others are not, but we're really looking forward to see what work we can do locally and also in your communities. I can't wait to do some shopping in your guys' cities. And again, I just want to thank SACOG staff and the board.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Alex. Appreciate it. Any other directors with any items they want to raise briefly?
Yeah, Lucas, Brian Veerkamp here.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, just two things. The Camino Safety Project has been awarded, and we'll hopefully start construction here soon. The EDCTC did submit also for the ultimate phase of that for a build grant. So hopefully third time's the charm on that. And certainly we're trying to get that project done in the best way we can. And then on the Echo Summit Bridge on Highway 50, it was slated to be completed here in May, but the materials are delayed again, the girders for it, and now won't be done till September sometime. So there'll be a Highway 50 complete closure in September. We tried to take advantage of the COVID issue, and again, the materials between Caltrans and the contractor didn't get ordered or something, and which is in my mind, and Amarjeet knows it, ridiculous, because we had all this time while everybody was down. So I urge them all to make sure that any future projects, and I would urge all of you, you get your materials ordered well ahead of time so these projects can move forward, especially if we have situations like this where roadways are shut down and we get the projects completed. That's it for me.
Thanks very much. Appreciate that update. Any other directors with brief updates? Otherwise, we'll, James, if you want to give a brief executive director's report, and then we'll be adjourned.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chair Ferrix, and thanks to all of you. Definitely good foresight on your part not to have the board workshop this month, so we can land this thing right at 11:30. So a few things. I've mentioned the regional economic prosperity strategy, which is now a prosperity and recovery strategy. There's a pre-release this afternoon for a few folks. The big major release will be public release next Thursday, May the 28th at 1 p.m. That's a come one, come all webinar. Again, GSAC, Metro Chamber, Valley Vision, and SACOG. It is the response to Brookings from 2 years ago and their kind of economic assessment of the region. So we'll make sure we send out those invites. It's very public, and it'll have a big emphasis on medium-term recovery and long-term prosperity. I mentioned the economic stimulus, infrastructure stimulus list. Tomorrow is our deadline. Again, been a very good exercise and very eye-opening to look at truly what is ready to go around the region. And I will just flag for everybody as we get into funding round and planning funds. One of the things that is coming up as a theme is that we need a deeper bench of projects that are truly ready to go. So sometimes I know, even as a planner, I don't like planning, I like to do stuff, but we also need to be able to advance projects to the place where when there's an opportunity, they are cleared and they're ready to go. So more on that to come. Mention, I think, was made earlier from public comment about the Active Transportation ATP program. Remember, last month of the board, you delegated authority to the Transportation Committee. They adopted that, and it's in your receive and file. I just want to make sure everybody knows to close that loop. The Transportation Committee did adopt that, and it's in your receive and file packet. Thanks to everybody on Green Means Go. I forwarded to some of you the sign-on letter to the Governor Newsom's Jobs Business Economic Recovery Task Force. Over 50 elected officials from every single jurisdiction, all 28 jurisdictions signing that. I will also tell you, you'll have more updates to come. Green Means Go just got a lot harder with the massive hole in the state budget, but we are trying to, again, use the opportunity of the Governor's Economic Recovery Task Force, as I said earlier in my presentation on our work plan, to really position Green Means Go as a stimulus. And just finally, I know there's been a lot of news out there, and we'll have more, and we'll put actually, we're writing an article in our newsletter. The bike share system in the 3 cities has been shut since the beginning of the pandemic. There's also talk, Lime has acquired the interest in the bike share and scooter share, Lime being a company that does this. And there's a lot of talk about maybe pulling out of the market. That is premature to say that, so stay tuned. This is one of the many interesting challenges you get when we do public-private partnerships. So more on that to come, and Kirk has his finger on that pulse, as do our staff, Sabrina and others working on bike share. So that concludes my report. Thanks.
Great, thanks so much. So the remaining items just on the agenda are all receive and file, and if there aren't any questions on these remaining receive and file items, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Not seeing or hearing any. So the next board meeting is going to be Thursday, June 18th. In the meantime, hope to see some of you in person, certainly, or all of you in person, but probably mostly in the virtual world. So be well, everybody. Take care. Have a great day.
Thanks, Lucas.
Thanks, Lucas. See everybody.
Thanks.